I can see her lying back in her satin dress, in a room where you do what you don't confess. Sundown, you better take care if I find you've been creeping round my back stairs. Sundown, you better...
Hey, happy Homebrew Wednesday. I'm gonna start this off doing a review that I promised I would do on the chat group, which is a review of Hayes Nation's Coffee Stout. Coffee Stout. I believe this is a beer that he fermented with Hornet all yeast. I think so, Ryan. If I'm wrong, correct me. And I think there was some multiple folks brewing. I want to say. I don't know. I think it's also like super high ABV, like 13% or something like that. And he wanted to get my take on it because as a connoisseur of high ABV beers, he was curious my opinion. So, hey, who am I to say no? So first impressions, this thing is pouring like motor oil. Exactly like motor oil. There is nigh a bubble of carbonation, which tells me that he's right. It is a high ABV beer, which I don't know if we can see it. Probably should leave some legs as well. It's so high ABV. It's like one big leg. It is very black. There's not even any hints of ruby in the corner, which sometimes you can see. This thing is kind of like the Event Horizon that I sent out. It's pure, lack of gravity. It's like, when I say gravity, lack of light. This thing absorbs every single light wave and it doesn't pass anything through. So, yeah, it's, definitely got the look. I am used to seeing a little more on the at least a thin, like super brown carbonation, kind of ring or a little small thin head. I don't see that, but again, it could be because it's super high carbonation. So let's go ahead and get a nose. All right, I'm getting coffee. Getting some coffee. I'm getting some leather, kind of leather quality. I'm getting kind of like a barley wine-ish kind of smell too. So yeah, everything I detect tells me that this is going to be one freaking gravity bomb. So without further ado, let's go ahead and take a taste. Cheers, Ryan. Wow, this is a really interesting beer. So the carbonation is lower. I mean, it's not bad. I don't think it's bad for the style. I think it's a little bit lower than I'm used to for an imperial stout. But what I will say is, I definitely get the coffee. Kind of first thing I get is a real, the super dark sweet chocolate, almost like the chocolate chips that you use in a Nestle chocolate chip cookie. The semi-sweet or the super sweet, kind of the dark chocolate chips. That's kind of what I get first. I mean, straight up. That's the first thing. Quickly followed by the coffee, the kind of strong coffee. It's stronger than most coffee stouts that I've had. I mean, this is like when someone makes some coffee to put some hair on their chest, which, hey, that's not a bad thing. I love strong coffee. So I get a nice, good dose of coffee punch, which I like. Then it transitions into that kind of barley wine kind of sweetness. So let's recap. All right, so super strong, dark, sweet chocolate, immediately followed by the coffee punch, roasty coffee punch, and then followed by the barley wine, kind of where it flattens out the sweetness across your tongue, and then it kind of coats, and then it kind of warms going down your throat. So I can definitely feel the alcohol in this. It's not enough to. I mean, it's almost like drinking a bourbon barrel Bourbon County Stout, Goose Island Bourbon County Stout. It's almost that same kind of warmth that you feel. I mean, there's just so much alcohol in here, you can't hide it. It's not like a corrosive burn. It's not like a kind of harsh alcohol. It's, you know, you expect this on I think this is a either 12 or 13% beer, I believe he said. And yeah, I can tell as I sip this thing. Interesting that this Hornedal yeast does this. I don't get any kind of off flavors. Yeah, it's really good. I don't, and you know, the cool thing about this is that roasty kind of bitter punch in the middle is kind of melts away kind of as you finish or swallow by that kind of barley wine sweetness, that kind of smooth sweetness. So all in all, I think the only thing that would kind of make this a nicer beer is if maybe you put some carapils or some, I'm surprised with, I don't know how you did the color, if it was a cold, maybe it was a cold steep coffee or cold steep on the dark grains. So you know, to not get a super bitter beer, but something in the, you know, something suppressing the proteins. I don't think it's just the alcohol content, although I think that's some of it. I mean, I don't think I poured it too like gingerly. I mean, there should have been some. So yeah, I'm surprised there wasn't. But I mean, if this thing had that real kind of brown, thin head on the top of it, it would just complete the package. I really like this beer. This is one that I wish that. Actually, I would say my wife would like this because she likes just about every dark beer or anything Scotch ale and darker over 10%. If you're getting around 10%, that's her jam. I'm not sure if she would like this particular one because she calls it the Senka flavor. Most of the time I give her a coffee stout or an imperial stout. They usually bother her because she doesn't like the strong coffee flavor. She calls it tastes like Senka. This has that, and I don't think, although it's not as bitter as most of them, but I think that would kind of turn her off to this. But I think this is a great beer. Like I said, just maybe throw a head on top. Super beer. Thank you, Ryan. I'm gonna have to sip this for like the next hour and a half because it's very strong, and it's mid-afternoon, you know. So anyway, okay. So that's that. All right. You're gonna see. Let's see. I've got my 3 entries in for the National Homebrew Competition. I think I'm gonna do an IPA. I've got that thing probably already fermented out. It's still bubbling a little bit. I brewed that thing on Sunday. Yeah, Sunday. It's now Wednesday. I put a blow-off tube on it, and you'll see some video here. That thing took off like Mount St. Helens. This thing is going crazy. It's still bubbling okay. I mean, I could probably put an airlock on it, and it would be a decent kind of regular bubble. But it's still kind of every now and then in the blow-off tube, so I'll probably leave that on for another day. Probably let that ferment out for a week and then throw the dry hops in for a week, and then I should be able to keg it and get it ready in time to ship. I've got a hub here on the East Coast. I have to have my shipment in between 1 and 14 March, I believe. So I'll probably try to ship my stuff on the 7th of March. That gives me enough time to get the dry hop, get it kegged and conditioned and all that. The second beer I'm going to turn in is the double, I think, because it scored really well in Cincinnati. And I'm not going to do one of the other 2 Belgians just because they didn't score as well. So I want to try to put my best foot forward. What I am going to do, though, is a brown ale because last year I did a clone of Owler, which is a beer that Wally Feck sent me from Urban Artifact. It was I called it a tart vanilla brown. So it's essentially a brown ale that's kettle soured and then aged with vanilla, like pure vanilla beans in the secondary. I did that beer. I sent it to Wally. He said it was pretty close to, and I thought the same thing. It was pretty close to the Owler. I called it Deliverance. So if you've got my brown ale, I think Nate just drank one on his 200th Homebrew Wednesday, maybe? I don't know. I think it was a recent Homebrew Wednesday he did, and he started off. I was very honored he had Deliverance. That was what that was. That was the beer that I submitted for last year's NHC. I got the results back on that thing. They didn't really like the tartness. and the vanilla. They really liked the brown ale recipe, said it was a solid brown ale recipe. They'd like to taste it without the adjuncts, so and the kettle souring. So, hey, who am I to say no? So I'm going to oblige the judges, and I'm going to send in the same recipe this time, just as a pure American brown, and we'll see how it goes. And yeah, that's my 3. So I'm going to brew probably tomorrow the brown ale. I have to have my neighbor come over and help me because I can't lift stuff. I got some pumps, so I'm good for most of the brew. But whenever I have to, pick up the fermenting bucket or whatever, I'll have to have him come over and help me out because I still can't lift heavy stuff. Last thing, you'll see a little bit of a brew day from the IPA I did this past Sunday with my bud Josh, great man. He came over and had never brewed on an electrical system, so I didn't get as much video as I wanted to because we were just BSing and playing darts and just catching up, and I hadn't seen him in a while. But great guy. He actually got me into home brewing. He came over one night for dinner. Probably this was, I don't know, 5 years ago, and 6 years ago, and he brought over a 6-pack of beer. Yeah, this would have been in like 2013. So yeah, it was about 5 or 6 years ago. So he comes over for dinner and he brings a 6-pack of his homebrew. He had like an Irish red, he had an IPA, he had a brown ale, I can't remember, a Scotch ale. And I drank them, and it was my epiphany that, wow, you can brew beer like this, and get this nice craft beer. That to me was just an amazing discovery. And so it was then, while I was still stationed down in Fort Bragg, North Carolina, that I started reading up on home brewing, and then I finally moved back here with a family and started getting serious about it. So he's the one that got me into all this. He's essentially why there's a dean's list. But anyway, he's only an extract brewer, believe it or not, and all his beers are really good. I still haven't brewed an extract brew, so it was good for him. He got to see an all grain brew and on electrical system, and I hope our electric system, brewing system, and I hope he had a good time. If you're watching this, Josh, man, it was great having you over here. So look forward to doing another brew day with you sometime. Maybe I'll come over and brew with you, and you show me how to do an extract. So anyway, well, that's all I have. I'll go ahead and cut it here. Hey, cheers. Have yourself a happy homebrew. Nice job, Ryan, again. And a very happy Homebrew Wednesday. Cheers. Okay, so happy Homebrew Wednesday. We're doing a old school double IPA brew day. As you can see, we're already pretty well into the process. We're in the middle of the beginning of our mash right now. Good color on the IPA. Our runoff gravity was 1083, so everything looks to be on. I have my physical brewing assistant here, Josh, is helping me out today because I can't lift anything over 5 pounds. So I may have violated that a few times, just don't tell anybody. So we'll check that a little bit later. Okay, we are ready for the first hot drop. It is a 1/4 ounce of Magnum, 60 minutes. Time is, what is it, 3:52.